As I was reading your post about whether or not computers can replace teachers, I started thinking about three of my worst teachers who were all math, very important teacher to have, that was on board with the curriculum and had the best interests of the students in mind. The three that I'm thinking of did not, and really struggled with how am I going to keep my test scores up, uh, despite the fact that these three teachers all had eighth graders. And when you're in Oklahoma, that was the group that could nail the coffin shut when you're trying to stay off the list of worst schools. So what I did was I used a software program. And I know we were talking about computers in general, but computers use software. And I was using Accelerated Reader. And of course, my kids hated it because the teachers were really cramming it down their throats, and everything was all based on the points. And they lost recesses. There was a tremendous amount of pressure put on the kids. So when I introduced accelerated math, there was that same kind of pushback. However, when I introduced it for the first time, I put it in a class of eighth graders where the teacher was really struggling. And as a result, the students started doing really well with their math because it was now driven by a software program. The kids would take a Scantron, take a quiz, run it through the machine, and it would kick out a new worksheet. And that was their instructor. The teacher was there more now, capacity of just classroom management, which I could have had a para in there do the same thing. But to keep it legal, I kept a teacher in there. Second example was the teacher wasn't even doing any teaching. In fact, how I found out she wasn't doing any teaching, she accidentally hit a kid in the eye with a rubber band from those geo boards. And it was brought to my attention, so ended up putting that program into her classroom just to get the kids caught up. And then the third example was I had a faculty member who I asked for a resignation, got it, and this particular person taught 7th grade algebra. And it's kind of funny, not that I had to get rid of this person, but back in high school, when you're asking your teacher, why do I need to learn algebra? They say, because, well, for me, why I had to learn algebra was I might someday have to teach it. And that was the case when I was the superintendent. I pulled the kids out of the classroom that they were in, moved them into the classroom that was empty across the hall from the superintendent's office. And when I had time, I would run over and provide instruction. But I didn't know what I was doing. I barely could remember if you added inside the brackets or out. Most of the problems these kids were getting were story problems. So I taught them how to break down the story, remove the text, and just focus on the numbers. But I had to also put into that classroom this accelerated math program. And the sad, actually, but kind of ironic at the same time, there were 3 other classes being taught at this, well, not at the same time, but in the district. 7th grade algebra, and the kids that took the computer-generated tests and instruction received the highest scores in the district. Certainly no fault of mine. I won't take any responsibility. I just made sure there was paper in the printer and that there was plenty of Scantrons, because I'm running back and forth answering phone calls and really trying to be a superintendent who's babysitting a class of 7th graders learning how to do math on their own. It was not an ideal situation. But in these 3 instances, 3 really bad teachers, maybe 4, including myself, had to depend. I chose to depend on it, okay, because this is what saved my neck. The other 3, it was forced upon them because they weren't cutting the mustard. But it did replace them in these particular classes. It did not replace the physical presence of a disciplinarian, but it actually did take over the instruction, and in all three instances the scores went through the roof. Just thought I wanted to share that with you. Also, a number of you have not posted yet, and that's past the deadline. And those of you who have posted, when you're including your ISTE standards, please make sure that you throw a T, A, or S in there, or CS for computer science, whatever applies, to indicate what subgroup you're getting your standards from. I think it's important that you denote and jump around, not just pick up on the administrators or the teacher ones, but look at the student ones as well. But indicate by letter which standards you're using. And I think if you move around through the different groups, you'll see some different ways of looking at things. Good job on the posts for the ones that I was able to read. And we'll chat with you in some form of media or another soon.